The ghost of the Claiborne. I was so excited. I was finally going to get to stay at the Claiborne Hotel. I had grown up in the San Francisco area, and the Claiborne Hotel had sat grandly on one of the highest hills in the city, looking out over the San Francisco Bay. As a kid I had always dreamed about what it would be like to live in a place like that, or even stay there for a few nights. The Claiborne had a storied history. It was built as a resort spa back in the late 1800s. I'm not sure who built the hotel, but I do know that at one time it was a hangout for the mob. They would send some of their old cronies over from back east to check into the hotel. There was a lot of talk that a number of them never checked out. Or at least not in the traditional way, that is. Before I go on, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Tony DeMarco. I'm named for my great-grandfather. He was a colorful character in old San Francisco, and was reported to have been part of the syndicate that owned this very same hotel. My grandma always said I looked exactly like him. I had left San Francisco when I went away to college and had only been back for a few brief visits. But now my company was sending me there for a conference. And the conference was at the Claiborne. As my taxi made its way up the hill, I kept searching through the front windshield for my first glimpse of the place. Suddenly we came around a corner, and there it was right in front of us. It was as pretty as I remembered, and it looked like it had aged well. The red brick still looked as beautiful and grand as ever. I grabbed my bags and wandered into the immaculate lobby. The ceiling sailed high overhead, decorated in pale yellow and gold. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling every 50 feet or so. The check-in desk was made of the same carved oak that covered the walls. This was definitely a place that screamed rich. I had heard that the average cost for a room here was over $350 a night, much too rich for my blood. After I spent a moment gawking, I stepped up to the check-in desk, and that's when things started to go wrong. They had gotten my reservation all right, but they had overbooked. More people had shown up for the conference than they expected. To make matters worse, they had had a computer glitch that had knocked out half the reservations for the night. By the time they realized there was a problem, they had filled all the rooms, and then some. "I'm sorry, sir," the desk clerk said, looking like he had had a long day. "It appears your reservation was one that the system dropped briefly. Unfortunately, we don't have a regular room available. We do have a few smaller rooms in the uppermost floors, or we can book you into our sister hotel over in Oakland." "I'm here for the conference," I said. "I really don't want to spend half of my time trying to get back and forth between the hotels. I'll take the upper room." Deep inside I was thinking that this wouldn't be so bad. I could tell by the high, sweeping roofs covered in dormer windows, that they had used every bit of available space. I was even thinking of the view. High up on a hill like this, the views of the bay and the city must be spectacular. That would only be made better by being in the highest rooms available. "I'm afraid these rooms don't get used much," the desk clerk said as he handed me my key. "But it has been aired out and everything is cleaned and waiting for you." His smile hinted that there was something he wasn't telling me, but I was too tired and worn out from my trip to care. When I reached the 6th floor, I stepped out of the elevator to find myself in a narrow hallway. One side of the hallway led to the rooms while the other side had the angled roof line to show that it was at the edge of the building. I glanced out the window and saw a beautiful view of the other rooms across the way. The door to my room opened creakily. I wasn't sure what I expected, but this definitely wasn't it. The room was rather small. It held a double bed instead of a king, and the roofline angled up into the room. And I'm not sure how long they had aired out the room, but it wasn't quite enough. There was a lingering hint of an odor that was reminiscent of something having died in the walls. Thank God it was a historic hotel and didn't have to comply with the new laws. The old wooden windows slid open easily. The night air was cool and the breeze swept in from the ocean. Laid out before me was a magnificent view of the city. I admired it for a few minutes before admitting how tired I was. Finally I turned away, got changed, and slid between the sheets. The bed was comfortable and I was looking forward to a nice, long sleep. It wasn't to be. At a little past midnight, I woke up. Before going on, if you like these stories, do hit the like button, subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell, so you will not miss new stories like this. I'm not sure what it was that roused me, but I was aware of feeling uneasy, like something wasn't quite right. I looked around the room, but didn't see anything in the dark. I debated turning on the light, but then I convinced myself that that would only serve to wake me up further. It must have been my imagination, I insisted to myself. I burrowed back down under the covers and closed my eyes. Just as I was drifting off, I was awakened again. This time I heard it clearly. There was a knocking sound coming from the wall behind my head. This was followed by a voice pleading, "Please, please let me out." The voice sounded breathy and ancient. Almost like it was coming from far away, but close at the same time. I flipped on the light and looked around me. The room was empty. There was no one there but me. I sat up and glanced toward the head of the bed. There was nothing there but the wall, and the sloping ceiling heading down toward the floor. I was sure there was nothing outside the window that could be making that sound, but I decided to check anyway. I got out of bed and stepped over to the window. Pressing my hands around my eyes to stop the glare, I looked out and saw again the lights of the city below me. They were twinkling in the moonlight, which was strong enough for me to realize that the roof of my room went down past my dormer and to the floor below. Just then I heard the knocking sound again, along with a panting and grunting sound. It sounded like someone was trying to push something that was overly heavy, and the sound was coming from right by my feet. I glanced down and saw a small doorway cut into the side of the dormer wall. It led to the roof area directly behind the wall of my bed. "Please let me out." I heard a voice begging again. Suddenly I had a thought. What if someone had entered one of the access doors from another room and had gotten stuck in there? I knew they had no business being there, but I also knew I couldn't live with myself if someone died because I was too scared to help them. "Hang on. I'm coming," I said to the doorway. I bent down to get a closer look at the door. I looked like it hadn't been opened in years. A quick check told me it had been at least since the last time they painted the place. The keyhole was covered over with paint. I quickly scraped it away and searched for something to pick the lock with. A quick look told me that wasn't going to be that easy since the keyhole was filled with paint. I glanced at the side of the door and saw that it didn't quite match the side of the frame. I grabbed my car key and slid it between the frame and the door. It took quite a bit of working, but I finally got the latch to slide up. My work wasn't done, though. I still had to use my key to scrape away the paint from around the edge. The door had been painted shut. As I worked the key around the edge, each bit of removed paint let out a little more of the air in the crawl space. This area definitely had not been aired out in the past 50 years. The smell of something dead and rotting kept getting stronger and stronger the further I got. Finally I made it all the way around the doorway. I used my key to force the corner of the door forward, then I dug my fingernails into it and pulled. The door gave way all at once, springing open into my hands. The stink of a number of years rolled out into the room, mixing with the dust that sprung up and out of the hole. I started gagging, feeling both sick and like I was being strangled. I waved away the dust from in front of my face and felt my hand go through a patch of horribly cold air. When I opened my eyes, I saw the remains of a man in front of me. The skeleton was tucked in the crawl space, its hollow eyes looking up at me eagerly. "Thank you," I heard a voice say from beside me. I jumped to my feet and whipped around to face the room. There, at the foot of my bed was a pale, white form. It wore the same pinstriped suit as the remains on the floor. My mouth plopped open and closed a few times. Suddenly the ghost looked down at the paperwork on the chair beside him. Tony DeMarco. He yelled in rage. You locked me in here. You look a little older, but I swear I would recognize that ugly mug anywhere. You're gonna pay for what you did. Me and my boys are gonna make you pay for locking me up for all that time. Without taking the time to grab my stuff, I jumped toward the door. While I was tearing at the locks, I felt the ghost's ice-cold presence seep into my body and through every ounce of my soul. I have never felt such terror in my life. When the last latch slid back, I shook myself violently. That seemed to rid me of the ghost for the moment. I snatched at the chance and yanked open the door. As I raced down the hallway, I kept seeing the ghost moving before me. The hallway was filled with small attic access doors. And the ghost was stopping at each one, opening them one after another. The odor of something having died kept getting stronger and stronger. The worst part was the expression on the faces of the emerging ghosts. Every one of them was angry about having been shut up in the crawl space for decades, and they weren't picky about who they took that anger out on. I raced toward the front of the building where the elevators were. As I got there, I spotted the door marked stairs right next to them. I yanked open the door and cleared the first flight by only touching 3 steps. 5 seconds later I burst out into the lobby. Forgetting my promise to stop and study it the next time through, I raced out the door as fast as I could. I could definitely cross staying at the Claiborne off the list of things I wanted to do before I died. Hope you like this true haunted hotel stories. Please leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel, so you will not miss any new videos like this. Thank you.